Now, this is going to be a prediction video for One Piece chapter 1050. Now, again, as of making of this video, spoilers are not out. So we're still in the dark in terms of a lot of things that is going to be happening very soon. Now, I don't know when we are going to get the spoilers, but I think it's probably going to be today, probably later on in the night. But I'm just making this quick video to give out my predictions on what I think is going to happen in chapter 1050 and beyond. Now, this chapter seems to be very hot because on Twitter 1050 is trending even though there's nothing at all. Like, people are just talking about it constantly, right? So a lot of people think this chapter is going to decide a lot of the theories that has been put out there in terms of raid failing, Kaido's awakening, Luffy actually winning the fight. You know, this chapter may or not solidify that. So again, a lot of people are banking on this chapter being that moment for Wano. But again, I'm open to all sorts of possibilities happening because with Oda, you never know where he's going with the story. Twists and turns are bound to happen. I personally think twists and turns are bound to happen even in this moment that we're in right now. It's not going to be that simple. So whatever conclusion we get with this fight, as far as it's executed well, I'm going to be fine with it. But before I keep going, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, subscribe if you're new here, and hit the bell so you get notified for future content. Now, this chapter is more than likely going to be predicated on three things, right? Three possibilities, three outcomes, and that is confirmation of either Luffy defeating Kaido, hints that leads to the possibility of Kaido potentially awakening, not necessarily in this chapter, but maybe the next couple of chapters, and maybe potentially we see somewhere else in the world, maybe the world government. We know that the CP0 agent happened to flee away from Onigashima, so maybe he's going to relay information, and we sort of see the outcome of what's going to happen there, maybe with the, you know, CP0 coming into Wano, even though I think them coming there wouldn't actually do anything because there's so many top tier fighters. Even though they're injured, I think that CP0 ship cannot do anything in this situation. But if there's an admiral coming, that's a whole different story, right? So that's the three options that I see. You know, Kaido's confirmation of defeat, Kaido potentially awakening in the future, and then, or Morgan spreading Luffy's name far and wide, and then we see the reaction of the world government with potentially CP0 coming in. Those are the three options that I see for this chapter, and more than likely it's going to be one of them, and potentially maybe all three things will happen and will most likely happen depending on the next coming few chapters, right? Oda works in parts, right? He doesn't deliver the entire thing. So even if we don't get it in this chapter, more than likely we might get it in the next coming chapters. Now, when it comes to Kaido getting defeated here, again, I'm not going to be mad at it, but I think we need to get more on that flashback because I think a lot of people were very underwhelmed as to the little flashbacks that we got here and there with Kaido, and it wasn't really a flashback. It was just more so a time lapse of how he became who he is, right? We didn't really get anything in depth with Kaido. It was just more so of him growing up. We got little details about when he was a kid, but in terms of his origin story, there's little to none in that flashbacks. But again, I think Oda is going to show us more. He's just waiting for the right time to deliver that information or that big reveal in Kaido's backstory or origin, and that might potentially relate to rocks, right? So I think we're gonna get it. It's just a matter of waiting for that chapter to come. It's just that Oda needs that moment, so it's going to be a gradual segue into the Kaido origin story. It's very obvious that Oda is hiding a lot because rocks wasn't shown in this flashback at all. There's something massive coming, and I don't think people are prepared for this. And again, it goes back to the interview thing that, you know, Oda did talk about. I think it was the anime director that talked about this, about Wano having a very surprising ending. It's not going to be the norm. We're not going to see the usual thing at the end of the arc. There's going to be something, a crazy reveal that we're going to get, and it makes sense because, again, we just went through some of the hardest fights that the Straw Hats have ever gone into and the biggest antagonist so far. So the delivery, the culmination of everything that's going to happen at the end, we need to get something special. This is not a Doflamingo versus Luffy, right? This is a world-changing event. The One Piece world is never going to be the same here, so we need something big, right? So again, when it comes to Kaido getting defeated here, again, I'm fine with it, but I think there's more. Whether it is for him getting more of a flashback or origin story, whether it's him getting back up, I think there's more, and Oda is just waiting on that moment. And the fact that Oda said that a huge punch wasn't going to be satisfying for the fans makes me think that I think Oda knows exactly what he's doing. There's something absolutely shocking that's going to come out of this, and whatever this delivery that Oda is waiting for, I personally don't know, but I will say that I am excited for what is to come. Now, Kaido's awakening is another point of contention, a huge debate in the community actually, where one side thinks that he's used awakening versus the other other side who thinks that he has awakening, but he hasn't used it yet. Now, again, I'm more on the latter. Again, I made a whole video talking about that whole situation and why I think that Kaido will awaken later on. But I also understand the other side in which people think that, you know, Kaido's already awakened because Oda could justify it by saying that, you know, these moves that he used here were awakening, like the flame clouds, him manipulating the elements, and also the flame dragon form that we saw could be awakening as well, right? Oda could just go back and say that this is awakening. But to me, that seems like a very roundabout way to say that that's awakening. Literally, all Oda needs to do is just take one panel and say Kaido's awakened, but he hasn't done that this entire fight. So that opens me to the idea that more things may happen, right? But again, I'm open to multiple possibilities of different things happening moving forward. And I feel like people are just honed in on one idea specifically, even though things could go different routes, right? I think people should be more open to different possibilities happening, because again, with Oda, you never know. There's a lot of uncertainty right now in terms of where the story is going. Obviously, we know that Luffy is going to liberate Wano and everything, but again, the sun god reveal, Luffy's Devil being a mythical Zoan, a lot of people did not know that was going to happen, right? There was a lot of twists and turns with Luffy here, so I would expect the ending to be a lot more curvy than what you would normally see in other arcs. So with Kaido's awakening, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, right? The story keeps going. So again, I see both sides, and both sides have valid reasons as to why they think this is going to happen. Now, the third thing that I think could happen is world news, right? Morgans, or the reaction of the world government, getting news of Luffy defeating Kaido and the sequence of events that transpired on Onigashima. Now, something very interesting to point out is that there's two news leakers in this entire thing. One of them being the CP0 member that we saw, you know, leaving Onigashima, and the other being another character that is very snake-like, and that is Apu. Now, when it comes to the world government news, it's usually very biased, right? The information that they're going to receive from that CP0 member will most likely be twisted and turned to whatever agenda that they're trying to convey. So it's going to be very biased. However, if Apu does leak information to Morgans in which the truth might actually be revealed in the newspapers, right? We know that the world government and Morgans aren't actually in a good relationship right now, so Morgans is actually kind of free to do whatever he wants to, and more likely the truth would be revealed through Morgans, right? With the world government, it seems like they're more focused on the situation at hand that's gonna happen, the after effects of this battle, because that's something that they need to prioritize, because this is going to be huge for the world, the balance of powers, etc. And it might be very likely that they will retain information about Luffy, or hide some information about Luffy, knowing that Luffy's fruit is actually the sun god devil fruit. That might be something that they might try to hide to not give people awareness that this actually exists, because it kind of relates to an individual 800 years ago. So that's something that they will more than likely hide from the world, because in actuality, not a lot of people in the world know who Luffy is right now, or the devil fruit that he has. I think the only person that could reveal that to him is Zunisha, more than like. She might be the individual to tell him that he has the sun god devil fruit, or what a lot of people consider to be Joy Boy's devil fruit. So we might get the reveal there of Luffy actually realizing that his devil fruit is special. And of course, that could lead way to all sort of things like the Void Sentry, Joy Boy, you know, a lot of lore. But again, that is my predictions for what I think is going to happen in the next chapter. Again, there might be some outlier things that could happen, with maybe even the Marines showing up, but for the most part, I think the general consensus of this chapter is going to focus on the three things that I mentioned earlier. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Comment down below what you guys think. What are your predictions on chapter 1050? Subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content. You can follow me on Twitter at FerroSpace. But it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.